About an hour's drive outside of Burlington, Vermont, exists a beautiful stretch of land filled with October foliage, known as the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. Though this area is 80% forest, there are 55 towns. But for poet Emily Houle of St. Michael's College, it is the people that grew up in these towns that matter. In her new book entitled A Kingdom Hollar, Voices and Visions of the Northeast Kingdom, Houle explores the diversity and beauty that exists in these woods and people.
Winter storms don't need snow. We are in the beginning of the Wizard of Oz. Instead of the dusty, dry prairie, we have freezing slick blacktop, gray slush, dead grass, and persistent rain that would have made a popsicle of little Toto.
A flood of students sits in the feral room of St. Michael's College, eagerly awaiting the poetry of Emily Houle, a poet and senior at St. Michael's College. For Emily, author of the upcoming book, A Kingdom Hollar, Voices and Visions of the Northeast Kingdom, this poetry isn't about expressing just herself, but a whole way of life.
I grew up in Irisburg, Vermont, which is a small town in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. A lot of poverty, though at the time when I was growing up, I didn't realize that we were considered a poverty-ridden area, but when I came to St. Mike's my freshman year, which was in 2011, it became really apparent to me that I was probably the only one wearing Walmart jeans in my floor.
Irisburg, Vermont, home to Emily and the focus of her poems, is a beautiful, slow town, crackling with leaves and personalities. Irisburg has a population of roughly 1,096 citizens. By comparison, Burlington currently sits at 42,417.
I try and make a point to go home for the opening of hunting season because, it's the back roads Vermont's unofficial holiday. That's a big deal, and it's a very big deal for my family, and it's exciting for me. But I would explain to folks that I was going to go home to go deer hunting, and I would get these looks of horror.
Lori Smith, a professor at St. Michael's College who served as a mentor to Emily, sees these gaps as being bridged in her poems.
She opened up for me, just reminded me that there are a lot of forms of diversity, and that some of them I think get more overlooked because others are more visible. So the diversity of rural versus city, or sort of a outlying area versus a more academic area, and a farm and a city.
At the beginning of this work, Emily had intended to write poetry on the surrounding landscape. However, as the project progressed, these poems quickly turned into portraits of the people around her.
When I started off writing, I was writing about places on the farm. So I wrote about in the barn, the graveyard out back of the barn, being in the woods during hunting season. And as I continued to write, I became more and more, I leaned more towards writing about people instead. So writing about members of my family or people we would see around the community, like the old guys who would hang out at the gas station, or the little ladies who worked the bake stand during the church fair, just people you would see in the community that I wouldn't have given a second thought, but if they weren't there I would have noticed, because they are like the little essential pieces to the community.
Emily's work is titled A Kingdom Hollar. Holler has many definitions, including a loud cry or a shout, but to Emily, there is its own special meaning.
I use the word holler. In one way, it's an opening of trees, a grove of trees, like hollow, but you'd say holler because of the vernacular. But then if you wound up catching a cold one day and you were out sick from your job or from school, within a couple of days word would have gone around town and you would have cancer and you'd be dying. That actually happened with my father when he sold our milking cows. It went from being just, oh yeah, Ron Houle sold his cows, to, oh God, Ron Houle is dying. And my mother actually got a sympathy card in the mail because that's what somebody had heard. So nothing is quiet in the kingdom. If you do something, it's very quickly going to become a town event.
An audience of students of Burlington get to hear about the Northeast Kingdom, and it goes over remarkably well. Corey Warren, a student of St. Michael's College, felt that her work had a classic feel.
I thought they were really great. I agreed with an audience member who said that they reminded her of Mary Oliver. Just really great naturalism and very intimate sense.
Mary Oliver is a flattering comparison. for she is a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet who wrote on New England towns. But it seems like for this Vermont poet, teaching might be the next big step.
So after graduation, I'm looking to, first of all, land some sort of job, whether it's in teaching or in a program like Upward Bound programs.
In the Northeast Kingdom or around here?
Wherever I can find one.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm not entirely picky.
All in all, it's not just a series of poems that Emily created. It's a series of paintings of a kingdom that lies beyond the city of Burlington, still untouched, still wild, still beautiful. For The Defender, I am Shannon Krehely.